Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. Tonight, we have a panel of people. One such person is Tracy Baggiano. How you doing, Tracy?
All right, how are you guys doing?
Pretty
They all
well.
can answer.
Pretty well. I can answer so far, but I must first introduce our next panelist, Mala Mahadevan. How you doing, Mala?
I am doing well. Good evening, everyone.
So tonight for Shop Talk, got a couple of items. Also, as I'll lay out every week, this is chance. It's an opportunity for a chat-driven experience, a bit of discussion, try to rile up chat, see if they rile us back up. It's kind of how we roll. So we were talking before stream about, hey, what did everyone do for Christmas? And the solid answer was
Nothing.
yeah. Tracy had nothing. I don't do Christmas. Mala
No,
probably
not
had the most exciting bit.
not really. I don't do Christmas Eve.
Yeah. The Duke says only one viewer. I think there may be a couple of other people as well. Yeah, see, it's already, you might actually be the second viewer. So
Everybody's on break.
we're
Except for us.
We'll see.
And
we'll
the
see.
random cat.
And we also had our fourth panelist sneak out there for a little bit. You saw maybe a little bit of a panelist tail.
Yep, Quake.
So she's hanging around. Maybe she'll show up. Oh, there you go.
There she goes again.
That's a little. I don't know if we can show that on Twitch.
I tried to cover it up.
Might be a terms of service violation. On break from Shop Talk.
I put her tail down as fast as I could.
No, so on break from Shop Talk, yeah, it makes sense. It's been a busy set of weeks. We do have a couple of announcements. So I've already sent out a few times already. Hey, check out the TriPass Survey 2020 edition. And I will put in one final time for anybody in chat who has not yet filled it out. First time back since the past news. Yeah, so we have not technically covered the past breakup on Shop Talk because that happened right after we had aired an episode, and we didn't have an episode last week. So it's been a couple of weeks. Seeing the shape of things, seeing what the dynamics look like, and some of the early movements in what does a post-pass data platform community look like. Honestly, I think it'll be a couple years before we have anything down solid, but we're seeing some early starts on a few projects. And one of them I actually have up here is around Data Saturdays. So I'm going to drop in a link to that. Data Saturdays is a replacement for SQL Saturday, in part because SQL Saturday being owned by the Pass brand or managed by the Pass brand, we don't know what's going to happen to that after January 15th. So people in the community have put together a new site, datasaturdays.com. There's an S at the end because datasaturday.com has been owned by CNC, the holding company behind Pass.
No, that's apparently been returned to Mr. Argenis Fernandez. So
okay.
Yeah.
Promised to be returned, but we'll see if it happens.
All right. Well, that's probably one of the best outcomes possible, because the worst outcome would have been, hey, we own this Data Saturday, and you're obviously doing something that's a play off of our intellectual property, and try to get that tied up in legal pain. So I'm glad that's not happening. Apparently.
Yeah,
No,
the board
I
has promised to
I
turn it
think
over, so.
probably, and I'm just totally guessing here. My guess is that they might even accept Steve's bid for SQL Saturday and give it back to them. Purely my guess, because
Yeah.
I don't think there is a ton of people bidding for that or anything. And he knows how to run it. He was the one running it, so I think it will come back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. If Steve Jones gets
until then, we have data Saturdays.
true. If Steve Jones gets it back, that'd be
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
You know, as painful as the SQL Saturday website was at times to do a lot of stuff, the fact that it was there had benefits just by virtue of the fact that it was already developed out. It was existent. It was pretty easy to go to a sponsor and say, "Hey, we have a SQL Saturday," and that sponsor generally knew what that meant.
Yeah. I don't think they'll get the whole website though. They'll probably just get the domain back.
Could be. It would be interesting to see if what it includes, because there
There's
there's a
data
lot of information
implications for giving them the registrations and stuff for users for with GDPR, and
right.
so that knocks out all the Europe, and there's possible European people's registered for US events now that everything's virtual, which I know there are some because there's speakers that have spoken virtually, so they're registered for US events, so you can't give us data for those events, and I don't know how that applies to
I've
sponsors.
always found the
So I
email.
doubt if we get the site itself with the data, we might get it without data.
Yeah,
Who
you can
knows?
never say what's going to happen to the data. I'd be
So.
skeptical if you give the data back to them. I very much doubt the data will come back, but if the website might come back with an empty database.
Who knows? That's for the
Yeah.
lawyers to argue.
Right.
So, who is Data Saturdays for? Basically, think of it as SQL Saturday, data platform community, probably heavily focused on SQL Server, but intentionally not SQL specific. Because if you go to a lot of SQL Saturdays, yeah, 80+% of sessions will be SQL Server related. There's a pretty good number of sessions that are also on other data platform technologies. You'd see a fair amount of Spark, Databricks work. You'd see some machine learning, data science sessions. You'd see even I've gone to Oracle sessions at SQL Saturday.
And it does say it's more Microsoft focused, but it would still incorporate other stuff. So as you see, do see AWS and Oracle stuff at SQL Saturdays. So, but
Right.
that's the platform it's geared towards, is what they say on their README page on GitHub. So, but I doubt if they would exclude anything that somebody submitted just because it's not Microsoft.
Yeah.
Don't take anything of value.
Pretty much. I mean, that's been historically how SQL Saturdays have worked. That
Yep.
you have an interesting session, that variety is nice to have. The Duke says, wish there were more NoSQL stuff, Microsoft focused. Yeah, there's a okay number of Cosmos talks, but generally okay number means one, maybe
One or
two.
two.
So right, there's no real track, and also outside of Cosmos DB, don't really see much like Azure Graph or table storage or anything else. You will sometimes see data lake work. I expect that there will be a fair number of Azure Synapse Analytics sessions next year. So HD Insight. So funny you mentioned HD Insight, because one of the topics we're going to talk about, I actually have on my show notes. Does HD Insight still matter? And my answer is no. But that's probably me being cynical. It's actually let's talk about that topic, because it's Azure Synapse Analytics versus Databricks. And the question is, well, in the Microsoft world, if you listen to what they're saying, when do we use which? When do we use Spark when? And my first question about that was, okay, we have those two technologies, and if you go and look, oh, here are other batch processing technologies. Like I could use HD Insight, but I don't want to. It's not very good. No offense intended to the HD Insight people, the developers who've worked on the product. I'd rather use Databricks. I know that that version of Spark will actually work fast, and it's HD Insight's always been kind of a mess. I do kind of like it better than Elastic MapReduce for the fact that I think it's easier for a developer to get into it. But after that, just not a huge fan of where it fits and specifically how much it costs. By contrast, I would say there are pretty much two technologies at this point in the Azure cloud that are really good for that sort of Spark processing scenario. So Azure Databricks and Azure Synapse Analytics. Azure Databricks runs its own version of Spark, and they optimize it really well. It is, I think, a fantastic solution if you need Spark for something. I think they do a good job of lining everything up. They do a good job of making it accessible for developers between the notebook experience and being able to create jobs that can be run automatically. That experience works out pretty well. The flip side of that is Synapse Analytics, which absorbed Azure SQL Data Warehouse, is now Azure Synapse Analytics dedicated SQL pools. They added to that a SQL on Demand, which is what is it called? Azure Synapse Analytics serverless SQL pools, I think is what it's called, or on-demand SQL pools, or something SQL pools. Marketing changes the name so often that who knows, but essentially it's serverless. And they've got Spark clusters. That Spark cluster is open source Spark versus the Databricks enhanced version of Spark. That means it's going to be slower. So if you have heavy duty Spark work, it may make sense to go into Databricks instead. But if you have a lot of data that some of it's done in a SQL Server like world, but you have enormous amounts of warehouse data, that's a good spot for a dedicated SQL pool. You can build out that Kimball style fact dimensional model. You can load in all of that data. You could use Spark jobs to work for ELT type purposes. You can bring in that data into Azure Synapse Analytics Spark pools and access it from there, and then start treating it in Scala or in Python and perform your analysis, perform your aggregations, tie in maybe with data lake storage work, the types of semi-structured or multi-structured data sets that don't fit quite well in a warehouse, and embrace that data lake style. So I think that there is a reason to have both. I will drop in, here's the Microsoft technology guide on when to choose which, but like I said, I don't like HD Insight for this at all. So they show you HD Insight in here and they say, yeah, it's an option. Yeah, it's an option. But this does give you a feeling for, here are the different possibilities that are available. And Element 61 had a nice article, which I want to see when they published it, because, okay, so this was back in August. So keep that in mind. This was before Azure Synapse Analytics went GA. And in this case, they show off, here's what's in Azure Synapse Analytics, and getting some feeling for what you can do vis-a-vis Azure Databricks. I do believe that, they're both going to be useful. Does Microsoft have a product that closely resembles Snowflake? The dedicated SQL pool is the Snowflake-esque competitor, yes. That Azure Synapse Analytics dedicated SQL pool used to be called Azure SQL Data Warehouse. It doesn't match some of the things that Snowflake does with respect to auto-tuning. So that's something Snowflake has, which the Azure version doesn't have. At the same time, prices went down considerably. Yeah, and as Andrew says, you can just use Snowflake in Azure, and that'll work as well. Snowflake in the Azure Marketplace is available, so you can certainly use that. Azure Synapse Analytics dedicated SQL pool pricing dropped considerably to the point where if you looked at what their pricing was 4 months ago versus now that they've gone GA, it is a big enough difference that it may be worth looking again. So in a scenario before where Snowflake was a more economical option, it may no longer be quite as economical. It may actually be that dedicated SQL pools end up being cheaper at this point. What would you recommend for reporting on 800 million key value pairs, the team's Python development with little SQL, and a Power BI dev? What do you think, Tracy?
I don't know.
So
That's
I could tell you, the Duke says Redshift for key value. Raymond says Looker. So I could tell you that if you talk to a Microsoft rep, they're going to try to push you toward Cosmos DB. You could also just as easily use Azure Table Storage, because Azure Table Store is key value. It's a very simplistic key value. Think of it as something closer to a DynamoDB. I guess it depends on, when you say reporting on 800 million key value pairs, how much aggregation work you're doing versus simple lookup. So if you're expecting to do a lot of aggregation work, that's a different story. Cosmos probably becomes a more useful scenario. A lot of aggregation on time. Yeah, so Cosmos actually becomes reasonably useful at that point because they have an analytics store. So it's a switch that you flip on, and they have essentially the OLTP version of your Cosmos collection, and then you have an OLAP version of the Cosmos collection where you can perform aggregate analysis pretty easily on that. That ties in. It's called, it ties in with Azure Synapse Analytics with Synapse Link. But let me give you a link so that it's easier to follow. This is fairly new, and I have to get the right thing. Synapse Link for Cosmos DB is right here, and that could be useful. It is in preview, so if you need something in production today, not a great answer, but that's what you would connect to, perform aggregations of data, and convert it into something that Power BI can more readily use. Depending on what those key values look like, that could be just flattening out the key value pairs, where if you have an entity, an attribute, and a value, EAV, turning that into more of a tabular structure. That's something that is easier to do here. Power BI, I would say probably for the visualization side of things. Why Power BI? I guess if you're saying versus Tableau, the answer is I don't have all the money in the world. If you're saying why Power BI at all, it's a reasonable visualization tool. Tableau is also a reasonable visualization tool. Qlik is a reasonable visualization tool. And writing your own is a viable option. We had a dev who made it in SSIS, but SSIS is not for everybody, especially not a green Python dev. Yeah, integration services has some ramp up. Like, what are they trying to do? Okay, so what are the major use cases there? Because my assumption there was visualizing data, and the mention was a lot of aggregation on time. So, oh, Grafana. Yeah, Grafana is actually a potentially a good choice for this. But more importantly, how do I feed my vampire in Skyrim 5? I didn't know there was a Skyrim 5. I think that's a joke, but I can't tell. Availability reporting on telemetry from solar farms. I could see that easily being done in Grafana with InfluxDB. Because that would be, your time series data. It would actually be stored as essentially key values over time, and could be visualized in Grafana reasonably easy. So if you have not gone too far down the architect path of implementation, we're going to use these technologies. That is, Grafana and InfluxDB are probably a really good pair of choices there. By the way, Tracy has a whole blog series on using Influx with Grafana, and also bringing in SQL Server metrics.
Yep.
And I know that we've covered
and
it
a
on
whole
Shop
presentation on it too. So recorded on my website.
Yep, and I'm pretty sure we've covered it on Shop Talk. So I'm gonna see in the Shop Talk archives. Oh no. Apparently we have not covered it on Shop Talk.
I haven't talked about it on Shop Talk, so.
I thought we did at some point, but I guess not. So, here's a link to a blog post I wrote early last year, and links to Tracy's series on collecting performance metrics with Influx, Telegraph, and Grafana. That's for a specific case of grabbing SQL Server log data. However, the database InfluxDB is a time series database. That time series database is essentially going to keep track of, here is a timestamp. You know what? I can do this. I could do this like a fancy person, especially since Pass is going under. So I can show people these slides. Let's see.
Totally.
I know I'm breaking all the rules now. So I am going to pull up a couple slides from my Precon App Pass Summit SQL Server on the Edge. And let me see if I can find it. Here it is, SQL on the Edge. You get to see my mouse move around the screen because I'm on the same screen. If you need close to real time, look to Apache Druid, but that has no Power BI support. Also, Apache Druid, I think, is a little painful to work with. At least my experiences with it have not been great, but it could just be I had limited experience. All right. Time series databases. Let me share my screen, and we're going to get fancy here. Okay. Here we are. This is I'm not going to do too many slides from this, but the whole idea here is tracking measures over time. So contrast it to a relational database, which can store basically any type of data and focuses on a specific structure of data, but doesn't require, say, that it be over time. Time series database, you measure stuff over time. So you have a table. That table has keys and values. So you've got field keys, like in this case, the image I'm looking at has butterflies, honeybees, and then there are tag keys, location, and scientist. So your fields are your facts. These are not indexed, they're typically aggregated. So you say, count the number of butterflies that showed up during this time frame by day or by hour. The tags are dimensions. These are usually the things that you slice on, that you filter on. So at location 1, at location 2, you want me to zoom in. I can, in fact, zoom. Check this out. And I can even, I should even be able to bring this screen over so that it is no longer in the way. And come back to this screen and make this screen full screen and make that full screen. And look at that. I've gone all the way and zoomed. I've gone too far. Science has gone too far. I remembered why I don't use this monitor for Shop Talk. And the answer is it's just too big. There we go. Too big of a monitor. Can't do it. Can't do it. All right, let's try that. Oh my gosh. Sorry about this, chat.
That's nice, Kevin. I can see it now. Oh, the second one, oh, it went away now.
Oh wait, so if I go like this,
that's nice. I can see it.
everything's full screen. You get to see the past Virtual Summit 2020 in the bottom right-hand corner. Or does it cut off at... So getting confirmation from folks, does this cut off with butterflies or do you see honeybees and location as well?
I can see everything.
Yeah, I see scientists as well.
Very
Cool.
very easy to read. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go with this then.
Yes.
So on OBS here, it's not looking right. So that's why I was...
It looks like you got the whole screen because you got the whole pass logo and everything.
The key concepts screen. Okay. So some people are saying, actually, you know what? That's why. Tracy and Mala are seeing the full screen version. All right, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. Chat actually couldn't see the full version. So how about this? How about this? We're going to bring this version back over here. We're going to bring this one over here. And I'm going to stop sharing. This is
fun.
This is a modern world. Infinity mirror. Yeah, we got that. But I'm going to share a monitor that I've never shared before. We're going to share screen 2. Okay. Let's see if this works. Oh my gosh. Life can't get any better than this. Sorry folks, this is what we're going to do. We're going to try full screening that. But I'm going to leave this as it is. And we'll drag that over. Drag this down. There we go. If I hit F11, the Duke, it's going to change something else. Basically, the one monitor is at a higher resolution than 1080p. The monitor on the right is 1080p, but if I try to share whereby on at the same time, everything falls apart. So that was the source of all of my pain. And I haven't had to share 2 screens. Nonetheless, here's what we're talking about. Measurements are facts. Measurements are tables. Fields are facts. They're the things that you want to count. They're the things you want to aggregate. Tags are your dimensions. They're the things you want to filter or slice by. And you have a timestamp for every event. So you can keep track of all of those individual facts, all those individual things, the key value pairs that you're interested in, and log them in this key value database. And the benefit to doing that is that it's extremely good for data ingestion and pruning over time. Also, it is focused well on time series data. So you can use a tool like Grafana. Yeah, now we're getting past the slides that I wanted to get to. So we did all of that really for one slide. I hope everybody's happy with that one slide. Hopefully it was a great slide. But essentially, this is how you would structure a table in something like InfluxDB. Then you could use Grafana to bring it all together. So use Grafana to say, I want to visualize this information. We're going to hit F11 again. I want to visualize this information, see what it looks like, usually a line chart, and you can easily display the measures sliced by whatever you need to, and then aggregate it over whatever time frames you're interested in. So you could get the 1 day, 7 day, 30 day views. Someone banging on Cherry MX Blues in the background. Well, that might be Tracy. You have a mechanical keyboard, Tracy?
Yes, I do. Sorry.
All right. So Tracy's got that, whereas I have the Unicomp, the buckling spring variety.
I was trying to think softly.
My keyboard doesn't do soft. My
Mine
keyboard
doesn't
goes from
really
loud
either.
to louder.
Yeah,
Sorry.
mine chatters away too.
Work contacted me. I should have muted myself, even though I'm off this week.
Although nothing possibly beats the keyboard my boss has, and I suggest one of you. I mean, I know Kevin knows, but Marshall's keyboard is the loudest I've ever heard.
I would say that mine might actually be louder.
Really? I've never heard your keyboard that loud. I definitely not heard it that loud at work, that's for certain.
That's because you don't sit right next to me.
Well, you can hear him at that distance, so you're not that far away. I can hear him at the elevator. I can hear his keyboard at the elevator if the office is quiet.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
The Duke says more of a Cherry MX Brown. Yeah, if I remember right, the browns and the greens are really good for gaming. Reds and blues were better for touch typing. Buckling spring is terrible for gaming, outstanding for touch typing. I grew up with something very similar to this. It was a knockoff of the old IBM MX or the IBM keyboard. And I for so long was on the crappy membrane keyboards. I decided I would go back to this, and it has improved accuracy. It has improved quality. Plus, it annoys people around me. So it's got all of those virtues. Middle ground for gaming and work. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I know the greens were best for gaming, but it'd been a while since I really dug into the varieties. Tried the new Logitech keys. No, I have not. I have not.
See, I'm so bad. I travel with a mechanical keyboard. I have one for my suitcase.
Oh yeah, the MX keys. My 20-year-old Dell keyboard rocks.
That's
Some-
Anders, isn't it?
Once
That
and
is
once,
Anders.
once I get too much work, I cast them and replace it.
Put you on your age, Anders.
Mechanical, yeah. Some of the older ones, they stand out really well. I remember, the other keyboard that I loved was one of the Microsoft keyboards where they broke out the keys. So the first half of the alphabet was on one side, the other half was on the other side, and
I used to hate those.
I liked it a lot. It was the
did.
ergonomic keyboards.
Yeah.
The one problem I had,
Make fun of me, yeah.
the one problem I had with that, the Logitech version was correct. The Microsoft version was wrong. The Microsoft version was wrong because the number 6 was on the left-hand side. Do not type the number 6 with your left hand. You type it with your right hand.
You sure do. I
So,
agree. I'm doing it right now. Yep.
Yep.
You would be right.
Yeah, it's right hand index finger. But they put it over on the left-hand side, which meant you had to stretch to get to the 6. And
or you had to learn how to type differently.
I mean, you kind of had to learn how, regardless. But
True.
GL switches are what Logitech are calling them. GX and GL. Okay, that's interesting. That's good information. I think 15 years from now, when I look for a new keyboard, that'll be very handy.
Yeah, I got mine has the USB ports in it. Be careful sticking your Logitech mouse things in there. These will blow out USB ports.
Oh.
It blew out one in my laptop when I worked at a different company in the laptop itself. So I do not keep this in my keyboard. I prefer it to mess up my work computer than I would my keyboard.
That's reasonable.
Sorry.
I've got one of those because I have
work has
MX.
money to fix it. I don't have money to buy more keyboards. They can fix laptops. They have warranties.
It's their hardware versus yours. That makes sense.
Well, I just never thought something that small would literally blow out a USB port, but it did on a brand new laptop. I have, and I blew out 2 on the same laptop at the last company I was at. And because I was like, oh, it's just not working in this one. So I stuck it in the other one. And like a week later, it wasn't working there either. So then I had to stick it in my keyboard. And I was like, hurry up and get this thing fixed so I can get out my keyboard.
That may just be a bad receiver that you have.
Well, I did order a new receiver too. once it blew out the second one. Because I just didn't think it was the receiver because it was like, a weird thing. But once it blew out 2, I was like, okay, new receiver, hurry up and get here before it blows out my keyboard.
So the Duke says GL is lower profile, whereas GX is more like a traditional key. Both are supposed to be more durable. And I am looking at the Logitech site for the MX keys. It looks nice. Yeah, it looks like a really nice keyboard that you could drop in a travel bag, work with. And anything that prevents that nasty key slop. Nasty key slop, I believe, is patented by Lenovo for their Yoga series of keyboards. They are sweet, but not sure if it's worth the money. That's fair. That's fair. I tried. Okay. I only tried the GL. They are great, but not sure if it's worth the money. Gotcha. That's fair. Early on in life, I used to be the type of person who would absolutely skimp on keyboards and mice. Oh, I get the $5 keyboard because that'll save me. I don't have to pay for that. Older me is now like, nah, I want the nicest keyboard that I can get. And
so, any tips on how do you keep that fancy keyboard clean?
Yeah. Like if you keep that keyboard for 10 years, even if it was $100, $150, it's like replacing a $15 keyboard every year.
Yeah. So how do you keep it clean? How do you clean between the keys and body?
How do you keep it clean? That's a good question.
Right.
You,
Because
you, you hire my son, who used to be in charge of the cleaning keyboards cleaning club at his elementary school.
what's that, Crazy?
My son used to be part of the. They had a special thing they called them, but they went around and cleaned the keyboards at the school, and it was considered a special honor to be part of this thing to do that. So you just hired him to do it. But he knows how to do all the Q-tipping things with the alcohol things, and because my keyboard gets pretty nasty.
Yeah.
They all do.
So I was going to give the real answer.
I know mine once it gets dirty and replace it with another one. That's why I don't go for the fancy one, because mine gets dirty pretty quickly.
We'll let Kevin give the real answer. He has a real answer. What's the real answer?
Well, the Duke also gave the real answer. The keys do pop off for most keyboards. Now, for laptop keys, it's a lot tougher because they have little prongs that fit in, and it can be hard to get them off. But for a nicer keyboard, there's a key remover, or frankly, you can use other stuff, like a little pry bar, pop them off, and you can soak those. You can clean those with detergent. Or you could use isopropyl alcohol. A small vacuum for the keyboard itself. If you were talking about restoring something that's 25 years old, you can take the whole keyboard apart and actually pop the exterior components, including the keys, into a UV bath. And if it used to be a white keyboard and it's turned that nasty yellow over time, then you can restore a lot of that classic white using a UV bath. It is better to use alcohol. Some strong detergents will fade the letters. You're right. So yes, it is better to use alcohol for that. When I've used detergent, generally I'm talking like a hand soap, mild soap, and not that much in water, and a little toothbrush to scrub off whatever. But alcohol is a good choice as well. Probably it is a better choice as well. I've used the soap and detergent, mostly in cases where they've just been really nasty keys. Or you just be that guy and you have the keyboard that's 20 years old that's never been cleaned. You have probably an entire lunch in it. It's emergency lunch. Anders has the ellipsis because we know Anders is that guy. So that was a topic. Definitely a topic. By the way, if you have not already filled out the TriPass survey, this is your last opportunity. I'm going to shut down the survey probably late tonight. So if you have not already filled out the TriPass survey, check that. Everyone with parents knows how awful their folks' keyboards are. That's true. I can confirm that, yes. M104 forever. Yeah. If I'm remembering right, that just took me to the Mercedes-Benz M104 engine, which was a straight 6 auto engine from 89 to 99. Double overhead cam design with 4 valves per cylinder. So, got that going for you. I guess was that a Mac keyboard, Raymond? Because if so, that was a PC keyboard. Okay. All right. My quick Googling didn't come up with the correct answer, but I might have seen one in my past. PCAT style. Oh, AT style for PC. Okay. I get acronyms sometimes. Yeah, on a phone. All right. That's fine. Next thing. So we talked about data Saturdays. The first one is open. It is Italy. It's a city in Italy. City in Italy that I can't pronounce. I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying.
Good job.
The second one is actually in Guatemala. So both of those are currently up. Call for speakers is open on both. And there are a bunch of additional ones that are looking like they're going to get added. So check out datasaturdays.com. These are all going to be virtual events for now. I'm sure that they will come back to in-person events later on at some point. After 2020 becomes a horrible, horrible nightmare memory. And we also talked about...
And if you have any input on how you'd like them to be ran or anything like that, you can go to the GitHub repository and comment on things.
Yeah, this is all... The benefit to it all being in flux is that people with ideas have a chance to get those ideas implemented. The downside to it all being in flux is that if you have ideas, the answer will probably be, how would you like to implement it?
Yeah, do have answers for how you want it done. Don't just...
I mean, you can have ideas.
Yeah,
so,
but do make sure they're productive suggestions and not just criticisms and stuff. So
true. So do check that out as well. And I think we're going to hit one more topic tonight. The last time I had a good idea, I ended up being in charge. That is the risk you run, Anders. That is a legitimate risk, and one that I try to avoid whenever possible. But as you can see, it doesn't always work. So the last topic I want to cover tonight is Azure resource groups. Oh, clustering to determine regions or groupings. That's a pretty solid idea, Raymond. That's actually something that was on the SQL Saturday website before, where you could say the Americas, APAC, and EMEA, essentially. Regions or groupings based on GPS. So for something like Data Saturdays, that may be a little bit of overkill. Just because there tends not to be so much in the way of possible conferences at a time. So, you know, that's where you end up running into, well, is there really a need? Is there really a need? Now, one other thing that I want to hit.
Really a need for what, Kevin? Sorry, I missed that.
Is there a need for clustering of something like Data Saturdays based on regions or groupings based on your GPS? Yeah, like where it would say, here are the Data Saturdays that are relatively close to you. Have links. So the datasaturdays.com link is up just a little bit above you in chat.
Oh, okay.
There's only 2 of them so far.
Yeah,
There will
right.
be more. And yeah, my expectation would be that there will be some filtering of events in the future. Early on, when there's only a few of them, filtering is easy. Just scroll through the list.
Right. Oh, all that will come up. I'm not at all concerned about any of that for now. I mean, it's an evolving project, and everything will get in place. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we can say with enough confidence that everything this year is going to be a virtual event. So there's no need for people to go there to pay any lunch fee or to find out the location or any such thing. I mean, it'll evolve. There's no doubt about that.
I'm crossing my fingers for an in-person event by the end of the year.
I think
I
there
want to
will
see
be.
people's.
I think there will be. I think there'll be smaller events, but I'm expecting that there will be.
Just a small SQL Saturday somewhere. Not a SQL Saturday, data Saturday. I'll have to get used to that terminology, but just, something small.
Yeah, I suppose.
User group meeting might start back up, maybe.
If everybody, is able to get charts where we are, we can be that small SQL set.
I'm not saying like a big conference or anything, just, one of the smaller ones, not Atlanta or Dallas or any of those ones.
Right.
Because that's too many people right now, I think. Because that's basically a conference.
Yep.
Will happen, please.
But maybe a smaller one can happen.
Yeah, like if you were
Or
talking
a few smaller ones.
if you're talking like a Sioux Falls or
Albuquerque.
Omaha or somewhere around that size, we're talking roughly 150 people. That's probably more likely to fly. Anders points out that we were, of course, talking about 2021. We have already put 2020 out of our minds. It never happened.
Never happened. What year was that?
Yeah, exactly. I also dropped a link to call4dataspeakers.com.
Yeah, that site's nice too. Yeah.
Yep.
Daniel Whitmaker, the guy who runs Group Buy with Blythe, the same guy who runs it.
Yep. Yeah. He's a buddy of mine, Daniel Hutmacher. He's a Swedish fellow who has a few really good websites, and this is one of them. The whole idea is that if you are a speaker and you would like to speak at events, but you don't know where the events are, sign up to that website, give an idea of the types of locations, what types of regions you're interested in, and when a data platform event gets listed, people who have subscribed to those segments can get a message that, hey, there's a new event listed. So there's only a couple of events on there right now. There's basically the Israeli Data Platform Meetup has virtual events that are just happening whenever. So essentially their user group, and Virtual Power Platform Bootcamp in Austria. Both of those are up on their site, but I would imagine that there will be other ones as well, and that these would be things outside of something like a Data Saturdays. May include Data Saturday stuff, who knows? But I like having the idea of more listings of data platform events in a location where you can get to a lot of speakers easily. And I'd like to see that for developer events and other IT related events, because it can be hard to know who's doing what at this point. We were absolutely spoiled with the fact that with SQL Saturday, all of the events were on one website. And if you wanted to speak at an event, all right, click a few buttons and you've submitted for that event. So someone like Tracy or someone like me could easily submit to a lot of different events, and every once in a while have to add a new talk. But otherwise it was just like click, 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 you're done. And half of those clicks were because you had to log in 4 times to get anything accomplished.
Oh, and accept the agreements thingies.
Right. So
and then log in again, and
Right. But yeah, it was a pretty straightforward concept that, oh, here's a new event, and you can have a well-known set of speakers who can all get in there and submit for this event, where I may not have known that I may not know who runs the SQL Saturday in some city. I don't want to pick a city because it's likely that I'll actually know that person. So, you have an event in SQL Saturday somewhere. Maui. SQL Saturday Maui. And I may not know who runs SQL Saturday Maui. But the fact that it's on the SQL Saturday website meant that I could see that one was launched. I could submit my sessions. And so I like what Daniel's doing. I appreciate what the Data Saturdays folks are doing. I appreciate what a lot of the people in the community are doing. Are they selling the rights, IP, data, or code for the SQL Saturday organization separate from PASS? The answer is
We don't
maybe.
know.
The problem, so I won't put Mala on the hook for this. But there are the lawyers are going to do what they can. And to the extent that
Sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's public knowledge that people are bidding for it. That much I know.
Okay.
And that's fair to say because it's been tweeted out, it's public. So anybody is interested and you think you've got the money and you want to be on top of it, go and bid for it. I don't know if they're going to accept your bid. I don't know if there's going to be, weighing person A's offer against person B's and seeing where they want to give. I don't know how any of that is going to work. Nobody knows. That's not up to the board. That's going to be up to the lawyers to decide, or the creditors to decide.
Bidding for the domain name or the whole enchilada?
The whole one. Not
to
just
the extent that they can.
Yes. Not just the name, yeah.
I don't want to say anything that's not public information or speculate on something that I may or may not have any information on. But there's information that I don't think they're going to be able to sell.
Yeah. People's
names
and emails and addresses are going to be under
GDPR.
Yeah.
Yep.
I stuttered again. I always stutter on that. But they're not going to be able to sell people's information. So
mailing lists are not resaleable. But the data, there is data that is outside of the mailing list. There is data on various things like, I don't know. Vendors, I don't know if that also falls under the GDPR thing. It may or it may not.
It would if they have any European data, it is. So I mean, Redgate's in Europe, so yep.
My real question is someone able to purchase it, take over the hosting contract, even if scrubbing the personal info? The short answer of it all is we're going to find out the answer when the lawyers are done. Right now, it's in the hands of lawyers. Mm-hmm. So the best we can do is speculate and say maybe. Mm-hmm. If the lawyers let something like that happen, I know at least one person who has put in a bid. I think Mala, was his bid public?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Steve Jones had a public bid.
Yes, he did. Right. He made it public.
Okay, so yeah, he was one of the original founders of the SQL Saturday concept. It was Andy Warren, Steve Jones, and Brian Knight, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And so he put in a bid for purchasing back the rights to SQLSaturday.com and to whatever. He only mentioned the domain name, hence wanting to clarify. Yeah, the short answer is we don't really know.
I think that's all he was wanting is the domain name.
It could be that he only wanted a domain. The rest of it, for historical reasons, may be interesting. Having the concept, the name still there, having like some of that piece, maybe. But the unfortunate thing is we don't really know for sure because the lawyers are going to have to figure out what is in fact severable and what has to go down with PASS.
Yeah, because you got to get usernames, passwords from whoever's hosted it, all that stuff transferred over, and there's a lot of stuff that would have to be done for someone to take over using what's currently there and have someone knowledgeable enough to scrub the data. I don't see that happening. Even though we're all data people, they could easily find someone to do it.
Right, but those people can't look at the data.
Well, all you gotta do is hit truncate table. I mean, type out truncate table users. Boom, gone. or
Right.
whatever the table happens to be with the email addresses in it and the personal data. And like I said, with sponsors, that's some of that data is going to have to go too, because sponsors register as users to go to the event. So the sponsors table itself might be safe, but if they put a personal email address in there of some sort, who knows? Is a company's email address protected under GDPR just like someone's personal email address is? I don't know. I don't know these things. So, and considering Redgate's one of the number one of the sponsors that typically sponsors a SQL Saturday, and they're based out of the UK. I mean, right there tells you might lose sponsor data as well because of that.
Maybe. If you buy
Maybe,
SQL
maybe
Saturday,
not.
what was that, Mala? Oh, okay.
We don't know anything at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
there's a lot of
speculation.
yeah, exactly. There's a lot that
You just don't know.
so sometimes you can buy customer lists. Not in this case. GDPR. It's there are GDPR implications, and I don't know if there's any public information about what that implies. But if not, I don't want to say anything that is wrong. Does
Yeah.
anyone actually care about GDPR? That's a topic for another episode of Shop Talk.
There was a company just given a fine for GDPR for like the first time. I heard, but I can't remember any details about it. So. Somebody actually had to pay some money.
Yeah, it's
So it's becoming a real thing because people are having to cough over money.
right. Well, it's like HIPAA. For the first few years of HIPAA, people didn't really care about it until they started getting fines.
Yeah.
Then they really cared about it. Doesn't apply when you take over a business. Right, but this isn't a business takeover is the thing. It's the bankruptcy liquidation of, well, maybe liquidation, maybe bankruptcy, who knows.
They're saying they're dissolving.
Yeah.
So that's not a business takeover.
Right.
They're dissolving the nonprofit.
Not for profit. It was not a nonprofit, it was a not for profit, yeah.
That's why I was pausing when I said it, because I couldn't remember if it was nonprofit or not for profit, whatever the wording was, but it's dissolving, so it's not a takeover. So
welcome to Lawyer Talk, where we have no idea what we're talking about, but we talk about the law.
Welcome to the show.
It can be a takeover if they sell it, right?
It could be if they sold it, but who's gonna?
I don't know. It wouldn't even be a takeover. No idea how it would work in Canada. Pass is chartered and organized in Illinois.
Illinois, yeah.
So the fact that there's a Canadian holding company or management company doesn't really play into this.
Yeah. U.S. laws, Illinois laws, technically. So
yeah.
U.S. Illinois laws. So who knows? We don't know.
I definitely don't know.
And do we really? I mean,
so GDPR isn't binding, right? No, GDPR is absolutely binding. GDPR is for any organization with where a customer is European. So whether they live in Europe or a European citizen living in your country. So for example, if somebody, say, born and raised in Germany, comes over or lives in the US, attends SQL Saturday Raleigh, that person has rights under GDPR, even if you are SQL Saturday Raleigh.
Technically, are they a customer? They didn't buy anything.
Well, that's where we're getting into.
I'm just picking. I don't want.
But they have no real authority. So, but they have no real authority over us. Yes, maybe. So the short version is yes, they have no authority. I say maybe because Well, if ever you go to Europe, or if ever you try to do something in Europe, or if ever I don't know, there's some sort of arrangement that's set up between the U.S. government and the various member states of the EU, that can be applied. Um, they have no ability to enforce collection. Yeah, as long as you never have anything that's, you know, handled in Europe. Um, so it's not something I would necessarily want to push too hard.
I don't want to test it.
Yeah.
No. No, don't want to test the waters. Find out.
Not paying means unable to do business in Europe, so don't sell anything there. It's EU has a lot of lawyers. They do have a lot of lawyers, and they will. They have a lot of money to bother you.
Brent did that last year. He would not sell stuff in the EU when he was selling his classes
courses,
online.
yep.
He would not sell stuff in the EU because of the GDPR. And I think this year he's got an end around setup where he's actually selling in the EU again or something.
I believe he's selling there now.
Yeah, he set up something, but he wasn't doing it because he wasn't comfortable with the laws last year.
Right.
But this year he set up something where he could be more comfortable with doing it because he didn't want to, get caught up in that mess.
Yeah. Plus, I believe CCPA goes into effect in 3 days.
Gotta watch out for California now.
Let's see. Actually, technically, it went into effect January 1st of 2020, but because we've already forgotten about 2020.
What year was that again?
Exactly. So, in that case, Solomon, you get even further where, all right, well, now don't sell to Europe, don't sell to California or Californians. That gets a lot harder because...
Do they have to be born in California? Does it count if they're born in California, they move out of California like in Europe? Or I'm just picking, don't answer.
But basically that sort of legal regime, you're gonna have to deal with it. Ignoring it is probably not a viable option at this point, even if you don't sell anything in Europe, because it's already there, it's already here. And California is not the only state that had a Privacy Act. So on that fun note, tune in for next week of Lawyer Talk.
Right, to what did everybody do for Christmas? We did something exciting, right?
See, if only chat had done excellent things for Christmas and could have rescued us from diving into areas of law where we clearly have no idea what we're talking about. If only we did something interesting. Tracy, why didn't we do anything interesting? Why didn't we plan ahead?
I dyed my hair before Christmas to, to help you guys out, put you in the Christmas spirit. And it did not work.
Can't work every time. So,
tried.
We're going to wrap up this episode of Shop Talk. Thank you, everybody. We will be back next Monday. I had to think about it for a second. I think we're going to be back next Monday. We're going to review the TriPass survey. We're going to come out with all kinds of findings and analyses. You may see a chart.
Ooh, fancy. Is it going to be in Power BI?
Probably not. It's not going to be that fancy of a chart. Unless it is. We'll find out. So stop on by next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for Shop Talk. And we'll see you there.
And everybody have a happy new beginning. We need it. Take care.
We already started that year.
End of Annus Horribilis. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.